Happy Tuesday, writers. Today we are getting back into using our writing notebook. So you're going to need the notebook. You're going to need your pencil and some colored pencils, a glue stick, and your green ELA resource folder that's located inside of your anchor binder. So for today, you should be getting out from the right side the first 4 pages on capitalization rules, capitalization, punctuation for effect, and then the punctuation symbols. Once you have those 4 pages out, put your ELA resource folder, make sure it's still in the anchor binder, and place that back in your basket for use later. We're going to go ahead and open up our notebook. Last week we were finishing up our iReady testing, so for this week we are diving right back in, starting a brand new unit after we had finished our personal narrative with our small moment stories. So if you would find last page that you finished your small moment story on the object, we're going to turn the page and we're going to then be inserting the next item, which is going to be located on page 12. So once you've located page 12, let's turn back to the table of contents. So we're inserting the next item in our table of contents, which is going to be page 12. So we're going to record capitalization. Remember, you can pause the video at any time to make sure that you are where it needs to be. Page 12 and 13 is going to be focusing on capitalization. Then we're going to jump to the next page, which is going to be page 14, and we're going to be focusing on punctuation. And then these are both going to take place on 9-8-20. Once you've written in your table of contents, let's go ahead and find where our new unit's going to start on. So we had page 11 was small moment story. Page 12, we're going to be inserting our 2 pages. The one that's going on the left is the one that says capitalization rules. So use your glue stick. Make the border around the edges and then the crisscross through the middle. Turn over and just make sure it's nice and smooth down. And then on the right side, do the same thing. The one that just says capitalization is going to be our practice sheet. So you can even record this on page 13 since we skipped that page for our practice. We're going to then turn the page to insert our last 2 pages we're going to be focusing on today. So 14 and 15. And we are going to be putting our punctuation for effect on the right. And then the page that looks like this, we're going to actually need our scissors to cut it in half because it is the same information posted twice. So you only will need half of that page. So once you have it cut down, that page is going on the left because that's going to be our information teach page. And then the right side will be the practice for punctuation for effect. Go ahead and glue that down and glue down your practice sheet on the right. Once you have your pages glued down, go ahead and turn back to page 13 for our first part of our lesson. So if you would, you're going to be looking at this capitalization rule. And it's important for us as writers to be able to understand when a capital letter is the beginning of a word. This is something that you should have learned in years past. This is something that we focus on a lot in our FSW when we create our crosswords to know when a capital is needed and when a capital is not needed. So we have some rules that we're going to be learning, or I should say reviewing. The first one is when a capital is the first letter of the first word in a sentence. So we're going to be creating some examples. So this is when you can use your colored pencils or you can just use your regular pencil. That's okay as well. So we're going to write our first sentence. I'm going to make sure that my first sentence starts with a capital. I'm just underlining it twice just to show for emphasis. So this word says tomorrow. We are going to the zoo. Period. So we underline to show what the rule is that we're showing an example for. A second example could be the first letter of a sentence, but this time a question. So we're gonna underline the first letter of the word how, making sure that it's capitalized. How many people are going with you? Making sure that we have the correct punctuation mark. Now I'm going to switch my pen. You can switch your pencil to show the next rule. This time it's the name of a person or a place. So it's a specific person or place that needs a capital. So we can write the word Carrie because that's your teacher's first name. So making sure that the first letter is a capital, I'm going to underline it twice. You could have the next name be George. That's Mr. Ling's first name. You can write your own first name as a third example. So those are examples of specific people. And then some places. Mrs. Ling loves the store Target. So we're going to write Target with a capital T at the beginning, underlining to make sure we know that's a specific name of a location. We could also write maybe a restaurant. So Outback. I'm keeping a capital O at the beginning, so put your 2 lines underneath there. So for this one, you should have at least 4, maybe 5 examples. 2 should be people and 2 should be places. So these are considered what we call proper nouns, so specific names of people and places. The next example of when a capital has to be used at the beginning of a word is the specific names of days, months, and holidays. So we could have the day of the week, Tuesday. So I'm writing that in my green pen. You can write this in your color pencil with a different color. I'm underlining the T to show that's a specific name of a day. I could have Friday. We all love Friday, so I'm gonna make sure that the F is capitalized. Months, we are in September, so we're gonna write September with a capital S. We might even have the month of June because we love the month of June because it's in our summer months. And then some specific holidays. We need to remember it's a specific holiday, not a season. So we might call it Valentine's Day. And the V is capitalized and the day part is capitalized because it's actually called Valentine's Day. We might even have the H in Halloween capitalized because it's a specific name of a holiday. Now moving down to the next one, we have the main words in a title. We know that authors of written pieces often have the liberty to show emphasis with either using capitals in all the letters in a title or using different fonts. But typically we see that the main words in a title are capitalized. So we're going to show some examples. So the first one could be the story of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The C in Charlie is capitalized, but the 2 words and the are not because they're not the main words. But we then once again have capitals for Chocolate Factory. And those 2 letters are capitalized, the C and the F. We might even have the story called Chocolate Fever. And the C in the chocolate and the F in fever are both capitalized as well. Those are the main words in the title. Moving down to the next rule, we have titles that come before someone's name. So think of how you would say your teacher's name. So using the title Mrs. M-R-S period, the M is capitalized because that's the title. So Mrs. Ling. We also make sure that my last name is capitalized because that's a proper noun. We could have Mrs. Rio, capitalize the M for Mrs., that's her title, and then R for Rio because that's her proper noun, her last name. We could also have the proper noun I being used. So when we think of a sentence, we might start with the I, but anytime an I stands alone, it needs to be capitalized. So we could start with I will have classwork today in writing, period. So we capitalize the I to show that an I by itself needs to be capitalized always. We say that it stands tall and proud. That's why the arms are out. Now looking at the right side, our practice sheet, you have some rules to be following to either identify where the capitals are needed and then to rewrite. So at the top it says capitalize the first word in a sentence, the names of people, places, products, clubs, and organizations, the main words in the title of a book, stories, poems, and songs, and the days of the week, months of the year, and holidays. So we can even take our highlighter just to put a nice box around to emphasize that these are the capitalization rules that we just reviewed on the previous page. The job today for the classwork that you'll be doing is to then rewrite the sentences below using those correct capitalization rules. So looking at this particular one, we're going to do the first one together and then you're going to finish up as classwork. So I'm going to find the letters that need capitalized and I'm going to underline them. So then when I rewrite, I can remember which ones need to be capitalized. So the city of Sacramento, the need to be capitalized. It's the beginning of the sentence. Sacramento is the name of a city, is the capital of California. California needs to be capitalized because it's the name of a state. So when I rewrite it in this line, I need to start with a capital. Then I continue writing the sentence city of. When I get to the name of the city, it needs to be capitalized again. Sacramento is the capital of, and then for California, I need a capital C. And if you need to go off the page like Mrs. Ling does, just to write a little bit longer, you're more than welcome to, because that's why we have the notebook paper behind. So you are going to make the corrections by underlining where the capitals belong and then rewriting it in the correct way. Then we're going to move on after you're done to the next page. So this is a good time to pause your video and then start it so you can look at the next punctuation example. Today you're going to take a picture of both pages together to show me your completed practice, as well as when we are finished with the punctuation, which is the next page. The next part of the lesson is identifying when we need certain types of punctuation within a sentence. So when we look at the top, we have the symbol on the left column, and then on the right, we have the name of the symbol and then what is it used for. So we have the dot, which is called the period, and that's used at the end of a statement or command sentence. So when you're telling someone something. The question mark, it's used at the end of a question, so when you're searching for an answer. Exclamation mark is when used with strong feelings. Quotation marks, this is used to show when a character is speaking or you are making note of the author's exact wording. A comma is used to separate groups of words or to pause in a sentence, so for an effect. Parentheses is when we're using to make a comment inside of a sentence or we're trying to group information together. A colon is the two dots sitting right on top of each other, and that's used to start a list or an explanation. And then the semicolon is used in place of the word and. So we are going to go ahead and look at the right side for our classwork page to look at how do we use punctuation for effect. And we are given 3 different types. So the first type, it says commas are used to create a pause. So we're going to create an example. So we're going to start with our capital since that was the first part of our lesson. And we're going to record the word let's eat, comma, grandma, exclamation mark. And it says, the next part we're going to write is, what would the sentence say without the comma? So understanding when a comma is needed. So right now we know this comma in the sentence that was provided is there for a pause. So it's giving a command and then it identifies who we're speaking to. But if we didn't have the comma, there would be no reason to pause. So we might then say, let's eat grandma, which would completely change the sentence. So instead of telling grandma, let's go eat, you're saying we're gonna eat grandma. So it definitely changes the meaning behind the sentence. The next one we're going to use is quotation marks around a word means that you are using the word in a special way and you really mean something else. So we use those, our fingers to say quotation marks when we're saying certain things to mean something different. So our sentence is going to be, Jerry is such a quotation mark hard worker. So the sentence by itself sounds like we're being complimentary to Jerry by saying, oh my goodness, he is such a hard worker. He must be doing everything he's being asked to do. But when we look at the picture and we see the quotation marks, it's kind of showing that we're being a little sarcastic because he's sitting on a chair. He has eyes that are closed. He doesn't look like he's doing too much movement. So we're being sarcastic in the way that we're saying the sentence because of the effect of the quotation marks. So it is showing our direct words, but we're also showing that we actually have a different meaning for the words that are within that. The last one, we're going to use the same color as the first. It says the parentheses are used to modify or clarify a word or phrase. So we might have the sentence, Linda is such an organized secretary. And then we'll have the parentheses, can you tell? And we had a comma there. So we're saying that Linda is such an organized secretary. Can you tell? So when you look at the definition, parentheses are used to modify or clarify our word or phrase. So we're saying she's organized, but we're asking if you're looking at the illustration as well by looking at what she looks like. Does it mean the same thing? So she has pencils sticking out of her head. She has papers being thrown around. So we're just saying, does that make sense to you? So today you are going to finish up with the 3 examples that Mrs. Ling just created for you. Take a picture of this page spread, meaning 2 items on 1 picture. Go back to the previous page and make sure you have finished up your classwork of your capitalization. You're going to make your editing marks and then rewriting the correct sentences. So you have 2 pictures to submit today. Both should be completed pages.